The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, December the 11th, 2025. Your reader for the first session, Ken Drost. Opening with the front page of USA Today, Trump's drug boat claims don't fly. Data shows Venezuela is not a major drug trafficker. Josh Moyer, USA Today staffer, writes, President Donald Trump and his top aides have justified lethal military strikes on suspected drug smuggling boats from Venezuela by accusing Venezuela and suspected criminal networks operating on its soil, like the Cartel de los Soles, of flooding the United States with deadly drugs. Now, this mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. This from Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, as he posted November 13 on X. He said, the military mission has been named Operation Southern Spear. Now, in August, the United States doubled the reward for information leading to the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to an unprecedented $50 million. That's $50 million, over allegations of drug trafficking and links to criminal groups. Attorney General Pam Bondi explained the bounty at the time by accusing Maduro in a video message of being one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. So that's reason enough, Trump and administration officials say, for launching military attacks that have killed at least 87 people in recent months, including 2 men clinging to wreckage after they survived an initial strike. That was on September 2nd. Now, that strike killed 9 other suspected smugglers. They say it might even warrant an attack on Venezuelan soil, which Trump has implied may be in the offing. United States and United Nations drug data, however, show that Venezuela is not a producer or exporter of fentanyl. That's a lab-made synthetic opioid. That it plays a relatively minor role in the far less lethal cocaine trade. Excuse me. Every boat kills 25,000 on average. Some people say more, Trump told U.S. military generals in September. You see these boats, they're stacked up with bags of white powder. It's mostly fentanyl and other drugs too. But actually, Mexico is the primary and virtually only mass producer and exporter of fentanyl, with Chinese peddlers sending small amounts by mail, according to UN Office on Drugs and Crime and U.S. counter-narcotics organizations. The opioid, 50 times more powerful than heroin, is almost entirely made with precursor chemicals that originate in China and are used by Mexican drug cartel chemists to make various pills, powders, and other products intended for the U.S. market. According to the Drug Enforcement Administration's 2025 National Drug Threat Assessment and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence 2025 Annual Threat Assessment, Mexico-based transnational criminal organizations, especially the Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, are the primary suppliers of illicit drugs, including fentanyl, for the U.S. market. The Congressional Research Service noted this in a briefing for lawmakers on August 26. Within the past 6 years, Mexican TCOs have acquired the ability to manufacture illicit fentanyl in Mexico, the independent research arm of Congress concluded. They reportedly use pill presses, often imported from China, to lace counterfeit medication, including veterinary medicine, with fentanyl or methamphetamines. Many victims have been young people taking what they think are other recreational drugs or painkillers that actually contain a potentially fatal dose of fentanyl, so small it's no larger than a grain or two of rice. Now, Venezuela does play a significant role in the trafficking of cocaine that's grown and processed in Colombia and elsewhere in Latin America. But the white powder, popular with recreational drug users in the U.S. since the 1920s, is driving a small share of U.S. overdose death. The Center for Disease Control found 74,702 out of 107,543 U.S. overdose deaths in 2023 involved synthetic opioids, and usually fentanyl. Now, although Trump does not seem to distinguish between cocaine and fentanyl, drug overdose deaths from cocaine rose from 12,122 in 2015 to 59,725 in 2023. Now, that's only because nearly 70% of these more recent deaths involved cocaine mixed with fentanyl, according to the CDC. So, what role exactly does Venezuela play? Now, available data suggests Venezuela is not a primary source for U.S.-bound cocaine or other major drugs, especially fentanyl. Instead, it's considered mostly a transit hub for cocaine, and a minor one at that, given that most of the drug flowing north from Andean countries are not primarily routed through Venezuelan ports, according to the United Nations. The UNODC and DEA both say most of the world's cocaine continues to be produced in Colombia, with smaller shares coming from Peru and Bolivia. Some of the trafficking organizations moved at least part of their operations to neighboring Venezuela after Washington's multi-billion-dollar planned Colombia crackdown in that country. And Venezuela doesn't even register a blip on the United Nations report and the latest DEA assessment of fentanyl flowing into the United States. The fentanyl headed for the United States is shipped north from Mexico using a network of smugglers and other facilitators, according to the report. Since approximately 2019, Mexico has reportedly replaced the People's Republic of China as the main source of U.S.-bound illicit fentanyl, according to the Congressional Research Service. That report and others by the DEA and the United Nations usually don't mention Venezuela at all when discussing fentanyl. The Republican staff of the Senate Homeland Security Committee also left it out entirely in its major 51-page report, addressing the supply chain of synthetic drugs in the U.S. That was December of 2022. Now, opponents of Trump's policy say the president is conflating the two drugs to claim vast powers as judge, jury, and executioner that have been used in the past only against terrorist organizations aiming to kill Americans after the September 11th al-Qaeda attacks that killed nearly 3,000. By doing so, legal experts say, the strikes raise increasingly urgent and unresolved questions about whether Trump is violating domestic and international law. Trump and senior officials frame Venezuela as a narco-terrorist state whose government-affiliated criminal networks pose a national security threat to the United States. The administration has designated Venezuela's criminal gang, Tren de Aragua, and the Cartel de los Soles, a loose network of corrupt military officials accused of trafficking drugs, as terrorist organizations under Executive Order 14157. Now, that order, issued in January, is formally titled Designating Cartels and Other Organizations as Foreign Terrorist Organizations and Specialty Designated Global Terrorists. It is designed to sanction transnational cartels that constitute a national security threat beyond that posed by traditional organized crime. The order led Secretary of State Marco Rubio to claim August 8th that it gives the administration the authority to treat those designated cartels, presumably even the small boat smugglers suspected of carrying cocaine rather than fentanyl, as armed terrorist organizations, not simply drug-dealing organizations. Trump has gone even further, rhetorically. After Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky went public with his concerns that the attacks amounted to illegal extrajudicial killing, Trump said his administration would be willing to brief lawmakers about the strikes. But on October 23rd, Trump said he saw no reason to seek congressional authorization. Instead of asking for a declaration of war from Congress, Trump said, I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs in our country. They're going to be like dead. And Trump said, the land is going to be next. Now, Trump also cited a 2020 Justice Department indictment from his first term that accused Maduro of collaborating with Colombian left-wing guerrilla group FARC to use cocaine as a weapon against the U.S. On the campaign trail, President Trump promised to take on the cartels, and he has taken unprecedented action to stop the scourge of narco-terrorism that has resulted in the needless deaths of innocent Americans. This from Deputy White House Press Secretary Anna Kelly. All of these decisive strikes have been against designated narco-terrorists bringing deadly poison to our shores, and the president will continue to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country. Now, Grocery Tracker. What's your bill? How prices are changing your shopping cart contents. On a personal note, there was a joke going around my neighborhood that an 80-year-old man said that he went to the grocery store the other day, and he says, apparently, he says, I am physically fit, really, really strong. I was able to lift and carry $100 worth of groceries in one hand. Yeah, bad joke. There's a photo accompanying the article, and it says grocery store shoppers have seen prices spike over the past several years, and most have yet to see any significant relief. Some consumers have actually seen their bills double and exceed their monthly rent or mortgage. Jessie Avier knows exactly what her weekly grocery bill will be before she walks into the Walmart. I know when I go into that grocery store, I'm not leaving without spending $400. The 30-year-old stay-at-home mom of 5 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, has watched that number climb steadily over the last few weeks. Just about 2 years ago, she could feed her family of 7 for $200 a week easily. Now, the cost has doubled. The family spends about $1,600 on grocery every month. That's way more than their $850 rent. Now, although Avia has been noticing higher prices throughout the year, she says the past 2 or 3 months have been especially steep. They had to quit soft drinks. Avia recalled that her family used to get like 2 12-packs for $5 or $6, but they never run those sales anymore. Now it's $5 or $6 for 1 pack. The following article, by the way, is by Dion Zhang, John Heasley, and Suhail Bhatt of USA Today staff. It's not just Avia who feels she's walking out of the grocery store today with fewer items for the same amount of money. Her experience reflects national reality. Rising grocery prices have placed a growing strain on American households. What was once a manageable part of the monthly budget has become a persistent financial burden, especially since the COVID pandemic disrupted global supply chains and triggered double-digit increases. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:16. Continuing, USA Today has launched an interactive tool enabling readers to explore grocery prices over time and across cities, and even select specific items for a standardized shopping basket. Our shopping cart, powered by Bright Data, it's a data scraping company, tracks real-time prices collected weekly from Walmart's online marketplace for at least one location in every state. The basket includes exact prices for specific items, like, a pound of ground beef, market side 12-count cage-free brown eggs, great value white bread, and other staples. Excuse me. So, pick a city, select items that you purchase regularly, and add them to a virtual cart and see how prices shift from week to week. According to Ricky Volpe, professor of agribusiness at California's Polytechnic State Institute, Walmart's prices are typically 10 to 20% lower than traditional supermarkets like Kroger's, Albertsons, or Publix at the individual product level. With more than 4,000 locations across the nation, Walmart is actually a pretty good way of tracking what's really going on with the rate of change in grocery prices, according to Volpe. Unlike conventional grocery stores, which rely heavily on promotional sales and weekly circulars, he said, Walmart maintains relatively consistent markups on products. Walmart has promotions, but they don't play that game anywhere near the same level like Kroger and Albertsons and Stop and Shop and so on. The steady pricing strategy could explain why USA Today's price basket, based on Walmart data, showed a slight decline for some cities on products in recent weeks, even though overall national grocery prices went up. Food costs were a major concern in the last presidential election, as voters ranked them among the top issues. In 2022, inflation peaked at 9%. Food prices rose even higher. They reached a 13% increase for groceries consumed at home, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Although inflation has since eased up a little bit, American shoppers are still paying 30% or more for groceries compared with 6 years ago. According to the Grocery Price Index from Data Assembly, that's a data firm tracking retail pricing. The index monitors weekly pricing fluctuations across more than 150,000 stores and 200 retailers, spanning over 30,000 zip codes nationally. USA Today modified the index numbers to show the percentage change in product prices compared with the first week of October 2019. Despite President Trump's promise to bring grocery prices down, consumers like Daniel Petkish haven't seen much relief at the checkout, especially when he buys protein like beef and eggs in bulk, items that experience shortages and price surges over the last several months. Now, this 25-year-old former college basketball player and now sports nutrition coach knows exactly how much eggs cost in 2022 and today. So why? Well, Petkish eats 6 eggs every morning and a pound of beef almost every night. Every 10 days, he walks into his local Aldi's in St. Petersburg, Florida, loads his cart with 6 to 12 cartons of eggs and 8 to 9 pounds of ground beef. Petkish said he remembers vividly that eggs were only $1.12 or $1.13 a dozen 3 years ago. Now that price jumped to $5 a dozen earlier in 2025 because of the avian flu outbreak. Well, now they're down to about $2 a dozen. He has since switched from pasture eggs to conventional eggs to save some money. He also gives up the convenience of pre-made microwavable rice and finds himself dining out less. Everything's either stayed about the same or increased in prices. Autumn Robeson has a full-time job as a phlebotomist in Wichita Falls, Texas. A phlebotomist, by the way, is the person that draws blood in a lab situation for your doctor. Anyway, she does not work to pay the mortgage or cover utilities. Her entire paycheck goes for one thing: feeding her family of 5. I actually only work a job to pay for groceries. My husband pays all the bills, according to the 34-year-old mom of 3. I literally just work to pay for food. Historically, economists paid little attention to grocery prices in monetary policy decisions, viewing them as a small fraction of household budgets when incomes were rising broadly. Now that calculus has shifted as income growth has slowed and wealth is concentrated among higher earners, making food costs increasingly burdensome for many families. When economists talk about rising wages in recent years offsetting inflation, they're not talking about everybody. The Federal Reserve Bank's data on wage growth shows all earning groups experienced increases during and after the pandemic, peaking right before the summer of 2023. But those gains were distributed unevenly. The lowest paid workers now experience the slowest wage growth as labor demand has eased. For many families, most of the wage increases were quickly swallowed by rising costs of groceries, housing, and childcare. Robeson's monthly grocery bill has tripled since before the pandemic, from $400 a month to roughly $1,200 now. That's a few $100s less than their monthly mortgage. Now, it's crazy that food is almost as expensive as housing, said Robeson, who shops mainly at Walmart every 2 weeks, spends about $600 a trip. She said nearly every item she buys has gone up. To save money, Robeson now opts for store brand products instead of name brands, including for microwavable pastries. I stopped by the original Hot Pocket brand. I'll get the Great Value one because it's $3 less. My daughter can't really tell the difference. But even store brands have jumped. The Great Value soda that used to be $2.50 for a 12-pack, it's now about $5. Her grocery bills surprise her. Sometimes I think it's going to be like $300 at the checkout, and it's $500. It kind of happens almost every time. The family grocery bill has climbed so high that Robeson started documenting her shopping trips on social media. She's gained thousands of followers on TikTok. So did Avia, the mom of 5 in North Carolina. Now, known as Mama J. Ray, Avia shows her overflowing shopping cart, the deals she finds, and the dinner she'll cook that night. Her videos went viral as grocery prices surged, drawing hundreds of comments with questions about how much she spent, how she could afford it, suggestions of cheaper brands, or money-saving tips. Avia now has more than 1 million followers on TikTok. She actually earns money from her content through brand partnerships and viewer engagements. Now, that helps pay the groceries. I unfortunately don't have control over the price of things, Avia said, but I do have control over my income and what I can do about that. So are prices ever going to go down? Many economists, myself included, see that as sort of the initial visible impact of the tariff situation, as well as some extreme weather conditions that are affecting commodity prices. Joseph Balagtas, an agriculture economist at Purdue University, said his team at the Center for Food Demand Analysis and Sustainability noticed food inflation has pushed Americans to change how they shop. We've seen some economizing, he said, moving to store brands, moving to cheaper cuts of meat, chicken instead of beef, and looking for coupons, and just making more frequent shopping trips. A wrecking ball of cold air is headed to the United States. Polar vortex is back, but it could be short-lived. Doyle Rice of USA Today staff writes, "Are you ready for some serious cold? The planet's most extreme cold air is going to be barreling into the central and eastern United States this coming weekend, just like a wrecking ball." This from weather trader meteorologist Ryan Mao in post on X, December 9th. Mao called it a textbook polar vortex mega dump of Western Canadian cold. Some of the coldest, if not the coldest, temperatures across the entire globe will cover the central and eastern U.S. over the weekend and into early next week. This from climatologist Judah Cohen, research scientist at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It also seems that the most expansive and continuous area of below normal temperatures across the globe will extend from Alaska to the eastern U.S. this upcoming week, he said. But in a shred of good news for those who hate the frigid weather, the cold blast could be relatively short-lived. Forecasts expect a return to more typical wintry temperatures by later in the month and into the new year as the polar vortex retreats back to the north and La Nina returns to prominence. The GOP is floating an alternative to Obamacare. More than one. Now, this is a proposal that would fund HSA accounts directly. Ken Altucker of USA Today writes this relatively brief article. Senate Republicans want to send money directly to Americans. That's rather than extending enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies that have lowered health insurance costs for millions of Americans. Republican Senators Mike Crapo and Bill Cassidy on December 8th unveiled a bill that would deposit anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 into a health savings account for, are you ready, eligible consumers. This money would be instead of extending the COVID-era enhanced tax credits that sharply reduced health premiums under the Affordable Care Act, which is often called Obamacare. Now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune confirmed the Senate is going to be voting today on the Crapo-Cassidy bill. Now, that's alongside a Democratic proposal to extend the ACA's expiring enhanced premium tax credit for just 3 more years. Cassidy, chair of the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, has said that empowering patients with cash could make them better health consumers, enabling them to bargain for lower costs. Think about that for a moment. But health policy experts say some lower income consumers would likely end up paying more for Obamacare coverage under the Crapo-Cassidy bill. Now, that bill, which incorporates President Donald Trump's idea to send money to consumers instead of health insurance companies, is one of a handful of GOP health proposals unveiled in recent days. Now, without the enhanced tax tax credits that expire at the end of this year, average cost for 22 million Americans who get subsidized ACA insurance will more than double on January 1st of this coming year. That's according to KFF Health Policy Nonprofit. So under the Crapo-Cassidy legislation, the federal government would deposit $1,000 into a health savings account for consumers between the ages of 18 and 49, and $1,500 for consumers 50 to 64 years of age. The payment would be limited to people who are enrolled in a Bronze or Catastrophic Affordable Care Act plan and earn up to 7 times the federal poverty level. Now, health savings accounts, which are paired with high deductible health insurance plans, allow consumers to save part of their paycheck before taxes. The money can be spent on eligible expenses, such as doctor or hospital bills or prescription drugs. Consumers can roll over health savings account balances from year to year, invest the money, and spend tax-free gains on eligible expenses. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:30. Continuing. The Crapo-Cassidy plan to fund health savings accounts could cushion the financial impact of the lost enhanced premium tax credits, but only for a certain segment of the population. Probably not for most people. Now, this from Cynthia Cox, KFF's Vice President and Director of the program on the ACA. Now, for example, consumers who can't afford to pay the monthly premium for a Bronze or a Catastrophic plan would not be able to collect the health savings account payment, according to Cox. Other Republicans have proposed their own alternatives. Senator Robert Marshall, a Republican from Kansas, proposed legislation to extend the ACA's enhanced subsidies in 2026 before directing funding in 2027 to a health affordability account. Senators Bernie Moreno, Republican from Ohio, and Susan Collins, Republican from Maine, want to extend the ACA's enhanced subsidies for 2 years with a new income cap and eliminate zero premium health insurance plans. Justices might just toss campaign finance limits, which were targeted by the GOP. A rule passed in 1974 was aimed at wealthy donors. Maureen Grope of USA Today writes, the Supreme Court seems likely to eliminate one of the remaining checks on money in politics, a decision in line with recent rulings favoring First Amendment free speech rights over fears about potential corruption. In a challenge involving Vice President J.D. Vance, the court considered on December 9th whether to scrap a rule aimed at preventing wealthy donors from bypassing limits on what they can give candidates by funneling money through political parties. The rule was passed in 1974, and that was part of Congress's response to Watergate, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court in 2001. Now, during 2 hours of oral arguments, the court's conservatives did not attack the GOP's argument that the law and the campaign finance landscape have changed since 2001. The coordinated party spending limits are at war with this court's recent First Amendment cases. This from Noel Francisco, the lawyer representing the Republican Party, as he told the justices. The Justice Department stopped defending the federal rule after President Trump took office. Roman Martinez, the lawyer the court appointed to defend the law, gave the justices a way to avoid ruling on what he called a highly politicized case. Because courts are only supposed to decide live controversies, the court doesn't need to get involved now, he said, because there's no imminent threat that the rule will be enforced by the federal government. Nobody thinks President Trump is going to enforce this law and target his own vice president, Martinez said. Excuse me. But Chief Justice John Roberts suggested that's not a sufficient reason to remain uninvolved in the matter. He asked Martinez whether it would be sound legal advice to tell J.D. Vance he could go ahead and violate the law while it's still on the books. Forever chemicals are becoming more common. Records are showing that 100 systems join the PFAS list. Austin Fast of USA Today writes, drinking water for at least 1 out of every 7 Americans, that's about 49.5 million, contains unsafe levels of forever chemicals, according to 2 new test results the Environmental Protection Agency published last November. I will repeat, drinking water for at least 1 out of every 7 Americans contains unsafe levels of contaminants. Since the EPA last updated these records in August, more than 100 additional public drinking water systems have reported yearly averages of PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Those exceed new limits. USA Today's analysis of the record shows water utilities in Anaheim, San Jose, California, and Brownsville, Texas, have joined the 944 systems across the country that have recently failed to meet the new standards from the EPA. There are thousands of these chemicals which are nearly indestructible because they were engineered to repel liquids and heat. Scientists say they can accumulate in the human body and increase the risk of certain cancers and other health problems when ingested. The EPA has limited 6 types of PFAS in drinking water under the Biden administration, but it announced that it would rescind all but 2 of those limits in May. The count of municipalities not meeting these 2 limits is likely to grow as the EPA wraps up a 3-year initiative that required all public utilities serving at least a few thousand customers to check for forever chemicals in their drinking water. So, what's new in this updated EPA data? Drinking water samples collected in Anaheim between November of 24 and May of 25 show one city well averaged 17 parts per trillion for PFOS and 8 parts for PFOA, respectively 4 times and 2 times over both chemicals' limit of 4 ppts. That's parts per trillion. Samples at the Brownsville Public Utilities Board in Texas collected from 2 water treatment plants from July of 24 through April of 25 averaged slightly over the PFOS limit, while the California Water Service Company in San Jose reported 1 well whose yearly average of PFOSs measured double the limit from January through July of 25. Now, such places as these, whose measurements continue to average over the limit, are going to need to locate other sources of drinking water for their customers or install filtration systems within the next few years. The deadline was set for 2029, but the EPA has announced it's going to extend the deadline. Although Anaheim's records were recently added to the EPA's data set, the city has known about the contamination in its water since at least 2019, when it finally notified its residents. Moving on to the money section. Self-checkout theft of essentials is up according to a study. Reason of confirmation: people are struggling. Betty Lynn Fisher of USA Today writes, more shoppers are stealing from self-checkouts, and what they're taking might surprise you. In a new study by LendingTree, 27% of respondents admitted to stealing something from self-checkouts without paying for it. Nearly half, or 47% of the more than 2,000 respondents, said unaffordable essentials and price increases tied to tariffs are the main motivations for stealing. Self-checkout lanes in grocery and retail stores, they're convenient for shoppers. They can help businesses save on labor costs. But some self-checkout areas are not monitored by a worker or only have one worker for several registers, so the potential for theft could increase. The fact that shoppers are admitting to stealing essential staples and not expensive products like electronics, that's a signal that Americans are struggling with the affordability crisis. Now, this from Matt Schultz, LendingTree's chief consumer financial analyst, as he told USA Today. The percentage who admit to self-checkout theft has also grown by 12% since LendingTree last did the survey in 2023. It's just further confirmation that a lot of people are still really struggling with high prices. There are certainly plenty of people who are doing just fine, but there are also an awful lot of people in this country who are really struggling to make ends meet. In October of 25, this year, report by the National Retail Federation retailers reported an average 26% increase in overall shoplifting and merchandise theft. Those incidents from 2022 to 2023, and another 19% increase from 23 to 24. The report examined all types of shoplifting and found no universal method. Retailers have to weigh potential loss with the allure of offering conveniences to shoppers. While self-checkout can provide consumers with an additional element of convenience during their shopping experience, it can also present retailers with vulnerabilities similar to other checkout options, including mistakes and loss. National Retail Federation Vice President of Asset Protection and Retail Operations, David Johnston, told USA Today retailers take this and several other factors into consideration to safeguard against loss and provide consumers with a positive shopping experience. Some retailers have changed, or they've pulled back their self-checkout offerings, as previously reported by USA Today. 2024, Target started a 10-item limit for its self-checkout items. Leaders at Dollar General and Five Below also said that last year they would be reducing self-checkout registers. Walmart also removed some self-checkout machines at locations in 2024 and uses some lanes specifically for Walmart Plus or its Spark delivery services. Sam's Club has a scan and go system installed in all of its warehouse stores, which allows shoppers to scan their items in an app to avoid a self-checkout or traditional cashier lane. Representatives from Walmart and Sam's Club confirmed to USA Today that there were no new updates to the information reported in a previous story. Representatives from Target, Dollar General, and Five Below did not respond to an email seeking comment by USA Today's deadline. Theft from self-checkout remains a major issue, said Neil Saunders. He's a retail analyst for the research and analytics firm Global Data. Excuse me. This is one of the reasons that some retailers are pulling back from self-checkouts and why others are putting more restrictions in place, such as video monitoring and increased staffing in those areas. But Saunders said it's unlikely to see self-checkouts disappear completely. Retailers love them because they can reduce labor costs. Some consumers like them because they're convenient and efficient. There could be greater use in the future of artificial intelligence to scrutinize self-checkout behavior and purchasing to detect criminal activity, he said. There was a study. The company Chewy and Aldi both lead with the best customer service. Roxanne Downer of USA Today writes, Chewy, Naval Federal Credit Union, and Aldi's lead a group of 750 companies recognized for delivering the best customer service in America, according to a study by USA Today and its research partner, Plant Insights Group. America's Best Customer Service 2026 spotlights brands across 45 categories that go above and beyond for their customers, both in-store and online. The rankings draw on a wide range of customer-centric metrics, publicly available data, and one of the largest independent customer service studies conducted in the United States. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. And continuing. Why does great customer service matter? The numbers speak for themselves. 93% of customers are likely to make repeat purchases after great services, according to Plant A. 63% will pay more for brands known for strong service, according to HubSpot. Companies that invest in superior service can see 4 to 8% higher revenue growth than the market average, according to Bain & Company. Now, these findings underscore why the companies in our third annual ranking of America's Best Customer Service stand out. These businesses aren't just solving problems. They are earning trust, loyalty, long-term customer commitment. This year's analysis is more comprehensive than ever. It began with more than 21,000 U.S. companies. From there, more than 7,100 were evaluated in depth, and more than 32,000 consumers were surveyed between September and October of this year. Only companies that customers had interacted with in the past 3 years were eligible for scoring, helping keep responses grounded in real experience. To broaden the lens on customer service, researchers also analyzed online reviews wherever possible. Now, in total, the 2026 study draws on 3.1 million customer reviews, including more than 2 million from this year's survey and over 1.1 million reviews from 67,000 participants in the 2023 and 24 studies. Now, that's helping highlight companies that offer not just standout service, but consistent excellence year after year. Consumers rated companies across 7 core service categories: friendliness, professional competence, customer service, availability, solution orientation, solution speed, and transparency and reliability. To protect the list's integrity, companies involved in recent data protection incidents or publicly reported employment-related allegations were removed. Plant A used Onclusive's critical mention media monitoring platform to identify these issues. Every finalist was then validated through a joint review by Plant A researchers and USA Today editors. Adjustments were only made when expert assessments and rankings did not align, and only when their reasoning could be verified. Minimum wage is rising for some. Millions in 19 states are going to see an increase on January the 1st. Andrea Riquer of USA Today writes, the new year is going to see dozens of states, cities, and counties raising the minimum wage locally, helping millions of Americans offset an increasingly urgent affordability crisis. On January 1 of this coming year, the minimum wage is going to increase in 19 states and 49 cities and counties, with an additional 4 states and 22 localities lifting their minimums later in next year. Now, this according to an annual report from the National Employment Law Project. That's an employee advocacy group. Next year, 79 jurisdictions are going to have a minimum wage of $15 or more. Policies increasing the minimum wage have been a lifeline for underpaid workers who have been the most impacted by a growing affordability crisis, defined here as the growing gap between household income and the cost of housing, groceries, and other basics. This was written by Annette Lathrop, the organizer's senior researcher and author of the report. State and local government measures on the minimum wage are crucial because the federal wage floor has not been raised since 2009. Catherine Ann Edwards, an economist and policy consultant, said in an interview with USA Today. Nearly 20 years later, 1 million Americans still make that amount, $7.25 an hour. But sometimes ballot initiatives, policy led by ordinary voters, not state legislatures or city councils, are necessary to get those changes made, according to Edwards. The minimum wage is one of the most popular ballot issues this century, she said. If you put minimum wage on a ballot, it's going to pass because nobody in their right mind would say $7 an hour. That's reasonable for this year. Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington are going to lift the minimum wage January 1. Later in the year, Alaska, Florida, and Oregon are going to act. California is going to enact a separate new minimum wage for healthcare workers. So, which cities and towns are going to see a minimum wage increase next year? Localities from Washington to Maine and points in between are going to raise the minimum wage in 2026. Among the more notable changes is one in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where future wages increases are going to be tied to a combination of the consumer price index and the cost of housing. So that policy is believed to be a first in the United States. Also of note, the Los Angeles City Council voted in May to gradually raise the wage floor for certain tourism industry employees to $30 by 2028. That will make it the highest minimum wage in the country in 2028 that has been decided so far. Because minimum wage increases by definition will go to people making less money, we're not expecting that big of an effect on the economy nor on inflation from the bumps that take effect next year. This from Matthew Nessler, a senior economist with KPMG. Excuse me. But even an additional $1 an hour could be life-changing for many Americans at the lower end of the income spectrum. Minimum wage workers tend to be employed in the care economy, like home health aides, daycare providers, and so on, or in retail, entertainment, or hospitality. Many are immigrants who may have less bargaining power than native-born workers. Many such workers have been especially hard hit by the inflation in the past years, which has raised the cost of necessities like housing, daycare, and food, much more than other goods and services. Since 2020, overall inflation has grown by 23.6%, and the price of groceries has risen by 26.4%. As Nestler puts it, daycare and preschool prices account for just 0.7% of the Consumer Price Index, the broad measure of inflation calculated by the Labor Department, which is used as a proxy for inflation throughout the economy. But for some households, those costs could account for more like 1/4 of your monthly budget. So that's part of the reason the official government metrics of inflation, the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, showed prices were up just 3% compared with a year ago in September. Don't square with many Americans' lived experiences of the economy. And it's why pushing to raise the minimum wage is only one small way to get the government working on ways to help everyday people afford to live in this economy. Nonprofit Pell Grants appear on track for depletion. Students are risking losing their financial aid in just a few years. Medora Lee of USA Today writes, funds for yet another government program are on track for depletion and could put higher education further out of reach for millions of Americans, according to research from the Nonprofit Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. Congressional Budget Office predicted in January that Pell Grants, the funds which help about 7 million low and middle income students to pay for their college annually, would fall short in fiscal years 2025 or the 25-26 school year. CBO had warned that the hole could be $2.7 billion that year and grow to nearly $10 billion by the end of the fiscal year 2026. You've been listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, December the 11th, 2025, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for the first session, Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Will Evans. And we'll first turn to the Life section. Our first article, Costner's Christmas is a Sign of His Faith. Before Kevin Costner rode into the sunset on Yellowstone, earned 2 Oscars for Dancing with Wolves, beckoned bygone baseball stars to a cornfield, or slept in a camper on Sunset Boulevard while dreaming of Hollywood fame, the seed for stardom was planted at church. I think I was about 4 years old when I was selected to be a shepherd in our church's yearly production of the Nativity, he says in ABC's Kevin Costner Presents The First Christmas. Would be my acting debut, and I would have one line, "Hark." The 2-hour special, which premiered December 9th, 8 Eastern Time, Pacific Time, streaming the next day on Hulu and Disney Plus, splices a portrayal of Jesus' birth with context from experts and commentary from Costner. Working on The First Christmas lit the actor up like a Christmas tree. We all think we know the story, Costner tells USA Today. We all wait for this time of year, and then we get mad at it too, because now it's so much stuff I have to do, and I hate this. It's too many people are coming to the house. There's this other story that changed the world, a lot of the world. I was proud to be able to do it, Costner, who's 70, adds. I'm sure I'm going to confront the cynics and the non-believers, who I invite them to sit down, too, and they can feel how they feel. But I was really happy. This gave me pleasure to do it. The church Costner says his family helped build in the 1950s was his foundation. Our friends came from the church, he says. The church was central in our lives. Costner's grandmother served as choir director, and his mom, Sharon Costner, lent her voice as a member. Sharon, who appeared in 2 of Costner's films, Tin Cup and For Love of the Game, died in 1998. I loved watching my mom sing, Costner says. I wish I could see her sing now. Her performances live live in Costner's memory and the church's teachings in his heart. These fantastic stories of faith and of believing, it's nice to believe in something, he says. I'd hate to live in a world where I don't believe in anything. Costner steadily relies on his faith, even when, to borrow a metaphor from his beloved Western genre, life bucks him. We can't always explain what moves us or what gives us this kind of determination or this faith that we will come out of this dark spot, Costner says. We can't. We just choose to believe, and it's something that has really sustained me. In 2023, Costner's second wife, Christine Baumgartner, with whom he shares 3 children, filed for divorce after nearly 19 years of marriage. Professionally, Costner has been challenged on his conquest to make his 4-part movie series, Horizon, an American saga. The release of Part 2 was delayed in 2024. And Costner has openly talked about difficulty in financing Chapter 3. I have had tremendous ups, and I have been bruised equally, Costner says. I've had things said about me that I know you know, but I have to endure them. And so how do I choose to live my life? In anger or in faith that things will reveal themselves in the right way? And so I've just chosen to do that. But being a human, you keep thinking to God, you need to hurry up, God. Listen, I've been praying for this for a long time. You've got to pick it up a little bit. But we live with faith, so we're going to be tested. It's just we're tested all the time. Moving to our next article now. Pfeiffer plans to slow down, have real fun in her grandma role. Michelle Pfeiffer has a couple of reasons to celebrate the holiday season this year. Hint, it's not 2 turtle doves. Her new Christmas comedy, Oh, What Fun, streaming now on Amazon's Prime Video, and Pfeiffer is getting to enjoy another round of Yuletide cheer with her granddaughter. The 3-time Oscar nominee announced in September that her daughter, Claudia Rose, had a child last year, and for that first Christmas with the baby, she was barely crawling, but it was special all the same. Pfeiffer, who's 67, tells USA Today, This year, she'll be 22 months and she'll be more aware of what's going on. Still, maybe a little on the young side, probably. The extravaganza of the whole thing might be a bit overwhelming, the actress adds. You always have to watch out for that. But you forget what it's like watching them experience every little thing as discovery. And that look of wonderment they just have all the time. I love being able to experience that, so that'll be really fun. Pfeiffer, who has 2 children, Claudia, 32, and John, 31, with her TV producer/writer husband, David E. Kelly, reveals that her granddaughter was born just before she filmed Oh, What Fun in Atlanta. So I was dying, Pfeiffer says. I was just pining for her. Anytime I got any few days off, I'd fly back to New York to see her. The new edition has Pfeiffer rethinking her career. It made me really want to experience her, she says. I really want to be there and watch her grow up. And so it's made me want to work less. It's made me want to slow down a little bit and really, really take it in. Pfeiffer stars in 2 TV series next year, her husband's Apple TV drama Margot's Got Money Troubles, and Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone spin-off, The Madison. While I love the projects, they filmed back-to-back with Oh, What Fun, which features Pfeiffer as a Christmas-loving mom who was let down by her family at the holidays. I didn't know my daughter was pregnant when I committed to all these things. She didn't know, Pfeiffer says with a laugh. She probably would have told me, or that she was planning it, right? That she kept a secret. Probably I wouldn't have taken on so much work, but it's an embarrassment of riches, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of these amazing projects and work with these incredibly talented actors, she adds. I feel really blessed. I might have some time off next year, which will be great. Our next article is written by Brian Truitt of USA Today. Escape and insight spark year's best. Superman saved us this year. So did Shakespeare, Benoit Blanc, the Smokestack Twins, and crazy old Aunt Gladys. In the past 12 months, films have been a needed escape from an unstable world, as well as a cultural reflection of the real-life tumult. One Battle After Another and The Long Walk weren't just movie titles, they were existential descriptions. The movies were consistently here for us, though, and of course, Tom Cruise hung off an airplane, which is pretty much like comfort food at this point. So which ones fed our soul the most? Here are 2025's best movies definitively ranked. Number 10, Weapons. In Zach Cregger's follow-up to his deliciously twisty Barbarian, there are metaphors aplenty to interpret in a thriller about a town that goes bonkers when 17 kids go missing in the middle of the night, and everybody points to their teacher, Julia Garner. The provocative genre-defying horror flick boasts unhinged gore, a delightfully dark sense of humor, an Oscar-worthy Amy Madigan as the creepiest aunt ever, and a crowd-pleasing finale. Where to watch? HBO Max, Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango at home. Number 9. Is This Thing On? Bradley Cooper's latest directorial effort is a more relatable, downright funnier outing than either A Star is Born or Maestro, plus unlocks Will Arnett's dramatic chops. He plays a middle-aged man who split from his ex-athlete wife, played by Laura Dern, when he stumbles into the world of stand-up comedy and finds a needed outlet for his issues. Cooper also has a hilarious role in the film about creative catharsis and complicated relationships. Where to watch? In theaters December 19th. Number 8, Superman. For too long, we subsisted without a really good cinematic Man of Steel. Then David Corenswet came along with a morally powerful Superman worthy of the name and a modern kindness is punk rock vibe. Director James Gunn's electric superhero adventure not only relaunched the DC universe in positive fashion, but also unleashed a timely tech bro villain in Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor and a role model for good journalism in Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane. Where to watch: HBO Max, Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango at home. Number 7, Hamnet. Prepare to be an emotional wreck by the end of Chloe Zhao's heartfelt look at William Shakespeare's family life. Jessie Buckley is absolutely sensational, and an Oscar Best Actress no-brainer, as Agnes, who's married to Will, played by Paul Mescal, and raises the kids while the bard works in London. Tragedy leads to resentment and disconnection between the two, but ultimately also to the creation of Hamlet and different ways of dealing with grief. Where to watch? In selected theaters now, expanding wider into January. Number 6, Marty Supreme. Like Uncut Gems, director Josh Safdie's sports comedy is another masterful panic attack of a movie set in the world of 1950s table tennis. Shoe salesman Marty Mausner, played by Timothée Chalamet, will do anything to be a ping-pong champion. He's a selfish, conceited jerk, and his pursuit of glory sucks assorted players into his chaotic world, from Marty's childhood best friend, played by Odessa Azayan, to a famous actress, played by Gwyneth Paltrow. Where to watch? In theaters, December 25th. Number 5, It Was Just an Accident. Jafar Panahi's thriller is an unforgettable juggling of serious moral questions and clever screwball comedy. Following an incident where a family hits a dog with its car, a mechanic, played by Vahid Mobasseri, believes the driver, played by Ibrahim Azizi, was his peg-leg torturer in an Iranian jail and kidnaps him, then brings in another former political prisoners who have to figure out if he's their tormentor and what to do with him in a breathtaking modern fable. Where to watch? In theaters now. Number 4, Wake Up, Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. James Bond? Daniel Craig again proves Benoit Blanc is the franchise role he was born to play, and Rian Johnson's third Knives Out mystery is the Southern Fried Super Sleuth's most personal and thoughtful case yet. When good-hearted young priest Father Judd, played by Josh O'Connor, is accused of killing his church's imperious Monsignor, played by Josh Brolin, Blanc and Judd become a dynamic duo tackling faith and religion amid a superbly crafted whodunit. Where to watch? In theaters now, Netflix starting December 12th. Rental Family is number 3. Brendan Fraser exudes compassion and awkward, earnest charm in director's Hakari Fishway out-of-water dramedy. Fraser stars as an American expat who can't find his groove as a thespian in Japan until he works for a service that hires out actors to play stand-in roles in their clients' lives. It's an entertaining character study that doubles as a touching look at found family and how we all deal with loneliness. Where to watch? In theaters now. Number 2, Sinners. Is it a gangster film? Heck yeah. Is it a vampire movie? You bet. Is it a musical? That too. Ryan Coogler pulls off something devilishly spectacular with this genre-bending 1930s set flick, featuring a magnificent Michael B. Jordan in double duty as twins who come home to Mississippi and have their party crashed by a band of charismatic bloodsuckers. Coogler also tackles racism and cultural appropriation in a wondrous fright fest that's mesmerizing in its filmmaking and meaningful in its message. Where to watch? HBO Max, Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango at home. And number 1, The Life of Chuck. The only Stephen King adaptation where you'll feel better about life, the universe, and everything after watching it. Directed by Mike Flanagan, a filmmaker who captures the magic of King's prose better than most, the soulful 3-act character study is a life told in reverse, where the confusion caused by the end of the world leads to a child finding his artistic self after navigating tragedy. There's a whole lot of dancing involved too, and none of it by evil clowns. Tom Hiddleston is the grown-up title character, Benjamin Pajak impresses as the younger Chuck, and Mark Hamill plays the coolest grandpa in a killer ensemble. Chuck is a life-affirming journey that everyone could use, a must-see film that warms hearts, captures minds, and blows up convention. Where to watch? Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango at Home, and Hulu starting December 26th. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 16 minutes after the hour. Moving from the movies now, we'll take a look at Broadway. Michelle Mates Make Chess Work Plain. This is from New York and written by Patrick Ryan of the USA Today. As it turns out, chess is still unfixable. Ever since its London premiere in 1986, folks have tried and failed to crack this convoluted curio of a musical, which follows a Cold War-era love triangle set in the cutthroat world of competitive chess. Even still, the songs are so damn catchy that people keep going back to the well, seeing if they can wring a coherent story from the frequently intoxicating pop score, which is co-written by Tim Rice, Benny Andersson, and Bjorn Ulvaeus of ABBA fame. A fitfully rousing new revival, which opened at the Imperial Theater November 16th, attempts to palliate audiences by making chess the butt of the joke, injecting meta-humor about current politics and dangling plot threads into our most entertaining Cold War musical. It's a smugly satisfied approach that would be borderline intolerable if it weren't for the dazzling constellation of stars that is Leah Michele, Aaron Tveit, and Nicholas Christopher, whose full-throated commitment to this tuneful slog may convert even the staunchest of chess agnostics. Gun to the heads, we couldn't begin to tell you much of what chess is actually about. There's a pompous American grandmaster, Freddie Trumper, played by Tveit, and his brooding Russian rival, Anatoly Sergeyevsky, played by Christopher, who face off at a World Chess Championship. Michelle, meanwhile, plays Freddie's discerning strategist and lover, and Hungarian-born Florence Vassy, who despises the Soviets for past family horrors, yet still holds a flame for Anatoly. The show uses the game of chess as a larger metaphor for the geopolitical landscape, although even with a streamlined new book by Danny Strong from Dopesick, much of the CIA and KGB machinations are too insipid to drum up much intrigue. The Arbiter, too, has become a grating Deadpool-style narrative, preening after every groan-worthy joke about Donald Trump, RFK Jr., and Joe Biden. While such songs as The Arbiter should soar, they're instead served with thick slices of ham by Bryce Pinkham, who risks popping an eye socket with all his winking. As directed by Michael Mayer, who also directed Spring Awakening, this too often feels like a chess revival that is embarrassed by its own existence. Rather than earnestly leaning into the melodrama, the show consistently undercuts its emotional moments with a punchline, which quickly becomes more exhausting than charming. Kevin Adams' stark lighting creates some splendid pictures, although Tom Brocker's sleek costumes and David Rockwell's minimal sets are better suited for a concert staging than a Broadway production commanding top dollar. But for all its shortcomings, it's impossible not to fall under the spell of this powerhouse cast. After swooping in to save the ill-conceived 2022 revival of Funny Girl, Michelle earned enough critical goodwill and box office pedigree to pick any show that she wanted to do next. That she chose a property as dicey as chess is admirable in itself, but it also makes complete sense, given how perfectly the score is suited to her stunning vocal abilities. Michelle is sublime as Florence, a role that allows her to be fiery and fragile, sultry and sagacious. The Glee star has shown commendable growth as an actress, and her marvelous voice has rarely sounded better than it does on Someone Else's Story and I Know Him So Well, her glorious high camp duet with the similarly dynamic Hannah Cruz as Anatoly's spurned wife. But it's Michelle's formidable take on Nobody's Side that will give you full-body chills, further cementing her status as one of Broadway's finest leading ladies working today. Tveit brings delightful sleaze and sex appeal to crowd pleaser One Night in Bangkok with an ingenious piece of trouser choreography by Lauren Lataro that drew audible gasps from the audience. And although he already has multiple Broadway credits, it's not a stretch to call him a star-making turn from Christopher, whose thunderous baritone ignites Where I Want to Be and Anthem. Together, this bewitching trio elevates an otherwise muddled revival, which is at its best when Meyer has the good sense to just let them park and belt. Chess might ultimately prove to be the most fascinating gambit of the season, neither an overwhelming triumph nor a total wash. Let's just call it a draw. Chess is now playing at the Imperial Theater, 249 West 45th Street in New York City. And now let's take a look at the horoscope for Thursday, December 11th, 2025. Aries, haven't you been here before? Yes, back in mid-November. Taurus, broaching the taboo topic again. You tried to have this discussion, but the stars failed to align. Gemini, attempting to be fair, approach a difference of opinion with a fresh perspective. Cancer, getting organized. Mercury enters Sagittarius today, helping you sort out details without losing track of the bigger picture. Leo, clear on your creative direction. You have your heart set on completing a passion project. Virgo, remember that conversation you started with a loved one mid-November? Pick up where you left off. Libra, pace picking up again? Today, interactions intensify with neighbors, friends, and contacts in your social network. Scorpio, a month ago, an investment plan fell apart, taking your confidence with it. Consider Mercury's entrance to Sagittarius your do-over. Sagittarius, let's try this again. Say your piece, don't water down your message. Capricorn, finally, you have time for yourself. Resume a spiritual study or creative pursuit that was interrupted mid-November. Aquarius, Mercury's entrance to Sagittarius encourages collaborations. Get out in your community. And Pisces, do you know the extent of your influence? Your voice has major impact. Use it. And from the Lifeline column, how was your day? Chanel Jones. After nearly a year, Jenna Bush Hager will officially have a partner for the Today Show's fourth hour. Chanel Jones was announced on December 9th as the new co-anchor for the program, known as Today with Hoda and Jenna, until Hoda Kotb left the Today Show in January. I am so thrilled to announce I have found my forever friend, Bush Hager said. Jones, whose husband Uche Ojei died from brain cancer in May, noted she was going through a tough period this time last year, but said the news brought so much joy to her household. Today with Jenna and Chanel will premiere January 12th. And it's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Actor-singer Rita Moreno turns 94. Singer-songwriter David Gates from Bread, 85. Actor Donna Mills, 85. Politician John Kerry, 82. Singer-songwriter Brenda Lee turns 81 today. Bassist singer Jermaine Jackson from the Jackson 5 turns 71. Bassist songwriter Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue is 67. Bassist singer Dave Schools from Widespread Panic turns 61. Comedian actor Monique is 58 today. Rapper actor Mos Def is 52. Comedian actor Roy Wood Jr. turns 47. Actor director Ryder Strong turns 46. Actor singer Alexa Demie turns 35. Singer songwriter YouTuber Tiffany Alford is 33. And actor singer Haley Steinfeld turns 29 today. And we'll head over to the sports section now. Our first article carries the headline, Coast to Coast Behemoths. NFL Power Rankings entering Week 15 of the 2025 season. Number 1, Los Angeles Rams. They're holding steady at number 1. The Sunday, December 7th, 45-point outburst, a season high, indicative that their Week 13 stumble in Charlotte was a fluke. Matthew Stafford continues to play like the MVP favorite, whether or not he's actually the league's best quarterback. He can further burnish his case Sunday, December 14th, if LA is able to stave off Stafford's former club, the formidable Detroit Lions. Number 2, New England Patriots. They're holding steady at number 2, though they lost their grip on the AFC's number 1 seed during their bye week. Drake May continues to play like the MVP runner-up, whether or not he's actually the league's second-best quarterback. He can further burnish his case Sunday if New England is able to complete a season sweep of the Bills and wrap up its first AFC East crown since 2019. Number 3, Seattle Seahawks. They're holding steady at number 3, thanks in large part to a defense that surrendered just 9 points and nary a touchdown in its past 8 quarters. Win their next 2 games at home against the Colts and Rams, and the Hawks take possession of the NFC's number 1 seed. Number 4, Green Bay Packers. They're holding steady at number 4, thanks in large part to a 4-0 record in the NFC North, the only one above 500 in what's arguably the league's toughest division. And memo to Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur is now 12-1 against Chicago since taking the Pack job in 2019. And to be quite frank with you, he'd definitely enjoy beating you twice a year. Number 5, Denver Broncos. They're holding steady at number 5, but it could be tough to stay there and on top of the AFC, given the only opponent among their Final 4 not projected to reach the playoffs is Kansas City. Number 6, Houston Texans. They're holding steady at number 6 and on the verge of a 6th straight win with Arizona heading to Houston on Sunday. And if quarterback C.J. Stroud and the offense can pick up the pace just a bit, this team poses a legit Lombardi Trophy threat. Number 7, the Buffalo Bills. They're holding steady at number 7, and QB Josh Allen, who might be the league's best quarterback at this point, and perhaps the most dangerous and experienced one on the AFC side of the playoff bracket, is looking like a man who could finally be on a fruitful Super Bowl mission. Number 8, Detroit Lions. It's amazing how many good players Coach Dan Campbell and General Manager Brad Holmes have amassed here, and a shame so many of them are sidelined. But Jahmyr Gibbs, who needs to be recognized as the league's premier running back at this point, fortunately remains in the lineup for a team still capable of offensively overwhelming its competition. Number 9, Jacksonville Jaguars. They're holding steady at number 9, and now firmly atop the AFC South with fifth-year quarterback Trevor Lawrence playing his most efficient football of the season heading into the stretch drive. Number 10, San Francisco 49ers. They're holding steady at number 10 and even moved up a spot in the wild card standings during their much-needed bye week. The Niners are also just a game off the NFC West lead, but only have one more divisional game at Seattle, while the Seahawks and Rams seem to face a tougher final month. Number 11, the Chicago Bears. It's been a fantastic ride in year 1 with Johnson, yet it also feels like the bottom could fall out at any point, following a weekend when the Bears dropped from the NFC's first seed to its 7th. Chicago's final 3 games are against Green Bay, San Francisco, and Detroit. Number 12, Los Angeles Chargers. So many of their key players have been hit with injuries, but when you're led by tough guys like quarterback Justin Herbert and offensive linebacker or outside linebacker Khalil Mack, who have shrugged off their own physical setbacks and now have rookie running back Omarion Hampton back in the fold, then you're a team wired well to deal with late season and postseason adversity. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 31 minutes after the hour. And now back to our power rankings for the NFL. Number 13, Philadelphia. If a team goes as its quarterback goes, Jalen Hurts doubled his season turnover total from 5 to 10 Monday, becoming the first player since the league expanded to a 16-game schedule in 1978 to commit 2 giveaways on a single play. After going to 2 Super Bowls in 3 seasons, it's sure starting to feel like Philly will now experience 2 cheesecake meltdowns in 3 seasons. Number 14, Carolina Panthers. Quite the bye week. Not only did they move into a first-place tie atop the NFC South, they now control their destiny. Simply sweep the Bucs in weeks 16 and 18, and the Panthers win the division for the first time since they went to Super Bowl 50, which, coincidentally, was in Santa Clara, also the site of Super Bowl 60 this season. Number 15, the Dallas Cowboys. 3 of their final 4 opponents are below 500. And if the Eagles continue to lose, that divisional window of opportunity could still open wide for America's team. Number 16, the Kansas City Chiefs. The last time they lost 7 games? How about 2014, which was also the last time they failed to qualify for the playoffs? Even if this dynasty wins out, it will need a significant help to reach Week 19. Number 17, Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we shut the hell up for a week, dare we say the Steelers got a vintage Aaron Rodgers performance in Sunday's win at Baltimore, both on the field and at the podium? Number 18, Cincinnati Bengals. Who would have thought defensive end Trey Hendrickson would be shut down before quarterback Joe Burrow? Whatever. Score 40 points per week and they'll be fine. Maybe. Number 19, the Baltimore Ravens. Quarterback Lamar Jackson hasn't rushed for more than 50 yards since week 1. With a 5-5 record, he's also in jeopardy of winning 50% or fewer of his starts in a season for the first time in his 8-year career. Number 20, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll always admire quarterback Baker Mayfield's toughness, but injuries, his and the Bucs at large, have caught up to this team. Mayfield passing for fewer than 200 yards in each of his past 4 games, all but one a loss. Number 21, the Miami Dolphins. Like Mayfield, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa has passed for fewer than 200 yards in each of his past 4 games, all of them wins. Quite the Floridian dichotomy. Number 22, the Indianapolis Colts. When you're considering a 44-year-old quarterback who hasn't played in 5 years, then the writing is pretty much on the wall. Number 23, the Arizona Cardinals. If Trey McBride catches 5 more balls Sunday, he'll set the record for most consecutive 5-reception games, 16, by a tight end. Got to look for silver linings where you can find them in the desert. Number 24, the Minnesota Vikings. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy, a first-rounder a year ago, just had the best game of his career. Good vibes for 2026. Number 25, Washington Commanders. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, a first-rounder a year ago, just had the worst game of his career. Bad vibes for 2026. Number 26 are the New Orleans Saints. Arch Manning? Whatever. Tyler Sloth is the first rookie quarterback to win multiple games for this franchise since Arch's grandpa, Archie Manning, in 1971. And though he started just 5 times, Slough has 2 wins this season and are tied for the most in his draft class. Number 27, New York Jets. Of their 26 touchdowns this season, 4, a full 15%, have come on special teams. Not sustainable, but trust the process. Number 28, the Cleveland Browns. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders will start the rest of the way and is already fomenting quite a dilemma for a team that once seemed certain to spend one of its 26 first-round picks on another passer. Number 29, New York Giants. They're not scheduled to play a team with a winning record the rest of the way, which won't make it easy to secure that number 1 pick in the 2026 draft. Number 30, the Atlanta Falcons. They definitely won't secure the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft because the Rams own it, and this ain't the NBA. Number 31, Las Vegas Raiders. If the season ended today, they would own the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft, and a team with such a glaring need at quarterback sure could use Indiana's Fernando Mendoza. And last but not least, number 32, the Tennessee Titans. The team that made last year's number 1 pick could really accelerate its rebuild if it also lands atop the 26th draft, assuming struggling rookie quarterback Cam Ward takes a quantum leap as a sophomore. Our next article is written by Nate Davis of the USA Today and is also about the NFL. Rivers' deal shows Colts are in way too deep. I'm not a poker player. Spades and hearts are my games, or maybe solitaire or go fish with the kids. But I've seen rounders and Casino Royale and enough live coverage of games of chance and skill on ESPN and other outlets over the years to know that when you're not pot committed, you better not be overplaying your hand. Unfortunately, the Indianapolis Colts' decision to sign 44-year-old quarterback Philip Rivers to their practice squad Tuesday, December 9th, seems like a strong tell that the organization and longtime general manager Chris Ballard did exactly that. On one level, you kind of have to feel for the Colts. Ballard seemed to inherit a full house when he took the job in 2017. Then quarterback Andrew Luck seemingly worth 3 aces on his own. But Indy was dealt a very bad hand when the often injured Luck shockingly retired 2 weeks before the 2019 season. Ballard and company chasing a better one pretty much ever since. The Colts languishing outside the playoffs since Rivers last led them there in 2020 in what was purportedly his 17th and final NFL campaign. Expectations for the team entering the 2025 season seemed modest at best. Ballard diversifying his quarterback options between Anthony Richardson, the tantalizingly talented but raw, inexperienced, inconsistent, and occasionally immature talent he chose 4th overall in the 2023 draft, and Reclamation Project Daniel Jones, once viewed as the future of the New York Giants. Yet Jones took command of the offense, took command of the locker room, and the Colts took command of the AFC South with a 7-1 start. That was enough to spur Ballard, typically a fairly conservative roster architect who preferred a draft-develop reward/resign approach, to effectively push his chips into the middle of the table at the league's November 4th trade deadline by dealing 2 first-round picks, tantamount to parting with the crown jewels, given his historical reticence for pursuing pricey moves, to obtain New York Jets All-Pro cornerback Sauce Gardner. And sure, maybe Ballard was on a warming seat nearly a decade into what's been a disappointing tenure despite some key circumstances that had been beyond his control. But the big swing for Gardner also signaled Ballard's belief that this team was championship caliber and that the players should operate accordingly. And what a story it would be if the Colts could end what's become nearly a 2-decade championship drought just months after owner Jim Irsay's stunning death. Just one problem. Ballard didn't account for a few of those chips, which apparently wound up under the table. After all, spending just a few more of them might have also given the Colts needed insurance at a quarterback position that's been snakebit ever since Peyton Manning went under the knife 14 years ago. And Ballard has signed enough guys like Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett, Nick Foles, and Gardner Minshew II to know you need reliable dudes like that around as insurance. He's also drafted enough guys like Richardson, Sam Erlinger, and Jacob Eason to know nascent passers can't be trusted or even expected to elevate the remainder of a roster. But instead of also anteing up for a Plan B quarterback at the trade deadline, current Giants third stringer Russell Wilson, who's on a one-year deal, would have been the obvious stopgap choice. Ballard decided to roll with Jones, rookie Riley Leonard, and journeyman Brett Ripien, who resides on the practice squad. Not even Richardson, who's been on injured reserve with an injured orbital bone for nearly 2 months, was a fallback option. The stratagem arguably veers into personnel malpractice, given Jones had played on a fractured fibula in recent weeks. Yet Ballard hadn't brought in an experienced free agent such as, say, Taylor Heineke, or poached a passer from another club's practice squad. Now, here we are again. Rivers, a player coach if there ever was one, back after nearly 5 years out of the league. Sure, he knows the organization. Sure, he knows head coach Shane Steichen and his playbook, given all the years they spent together with the Chargers. Sure, Rivers is a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. Sure, he's 44, but in some respects, given his limited physical gifts, he's been a 44-year-old quarterback for the past 24 years, right? But it's hardly fair or reasonable to expect Rivers to pick up where he left off and take the Colts back to the playoffs, which they're not even projected to make at the moment, given how things shook out Sunday. And even if Rivers is forced into the lineup, though hopefully not against that nasty Seahawks defense in Seattle on Sunday, and catches lightning in a bottle like Flacco did 2 years ago for the Cleveland Browns and gets Indy as far as Week 19, what then? You don't think defensive-centric teams like the Denver Broncos, Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans, or New England Patriots, for example, wouldn't key on superstar back Jonathan Taylor and force a rusty guy born the year 1981, President Ronald Reagan took office to beat them? Admittedly, there's no major risks to signing Rivers, but there's no real legitimate upside either. Even if he somehow won a single playoff game, Ballard's going to be in an unenviable position at some point in January. And that means having a top-tier cornerback in a ground-and-pound division, one quarterback, Richardson, who seems ready for a fresh start, and another, Jones, rehabbing a serious injury but on the cusp of a free agency period that could nevertheless bring a bidding war for his services, whether or not he's ready to start the 2026 season. Oh, and no first-round pick as an alternative to remediate the quandary next year or in 2027. Poker is a cruel game, but by seemingly going with his heart of late, Ballard now has problems in spades and could find himself in a solitary place fishing for a new job soon enough. And we'll turn to the NBA for our next article. Paul at peace with Clippers' decision, next move. There is one silver lining to the abrupt end to Chris Paul's brief return to the Los Angeles Clippers. He'll finally get to watch his son play in a basketball game this week. Watching his family enjoy the game, Paul revealed to People magazine in a new interview, is why he's at peace with the Clippers' stunning decision to send the 12-time NBA All-Star home from the team in the middle of the night during a road trip in Atlanta. But the 40-year-old point guard is taking a wait-and-see attitude in regards to potentially resuming what had previously been announced as his final NBA season. Stuff's been a little crazy in the past few days, to say the least, Paul said in a story published on Tuesday, December 9th. But honestly, I'm home. My daughter had tryouts yesterday. My nephew had a basketball game. My son has a game coming up on December 12th. I have never seen my son play a game in person, he added. Not a middle school game, not a high school game, so I'm excited about seeing him play. I'd like to remind you, you're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. And now back to our story. Paul signed with the Clippers this offseason after indicating he wanted to play the 2025-26 season in Los Angeles to be close to his family for the first time since he was initially traded away from the franchise in 2017. He then announced last month he planned to retire after this NBA season. But Paul wound up making his final appearance for the Clippers on December 1st. His return lasted just 16 games, and he was averaging career lows in minutes, points, and assists, while shooting a career worst 32.1% from the field this season. The move to part ways with Paul, as well as how the Clippers handled delivering the news to the 21-year veteran, caused a stir throughout the league because of his stature in the sport. Paul sent out an Instagram post around 3 a.m. Eastern Time on December 3rd to announce he was being sent home by the team. Paul also spent 6 years with the franchise from 2011 to 2017, reaching the All-Star game in each of those seasons. He is the Clippers' all-time assist leader in assist, 4,076. I don't regret anything, Paul said. I was in Atlanta with a whole bunch of family. It was my last game going to be playing there. That's life. The whole thing took on a life of its own, you know. But I'm excited to be back here with my family. Clippers coach Tyronn Lue subsequently told reporters Paul wasn't a good fit after multiple reports emerged detailing how Paul's leadership style clashed with both Lue and other players in the Los Angeles locker room. But Clippers star James Harden expressed confusion and surprise at the separation between Paul and the team, while Kawhi Leonard called the front office move shocking. The Clippers, with a 6-18 record, have been perhaps the NBA's most disappointing team this season compared to preseason expectations, though the franchise noted in its decision to part ways with Paul that it did not blame him for those struggles. The team has yet to waive, trade, or buy out Paul's one-year, $3.6 million contract. Clippers general manager Lawrence Frank said in a statement the team would work with Paul on the next step of his career. If released by the Clippers, Paul wouldn't be eligible to sign with another team until December 15th. I'm actually at peace with everything, Paul said in regards to his immediate future. More than anything, I'm excited about being around and getting a chance to play a small role in whatever anything looks like next. And we'll head to Orlando, Florida for our next article, taking a look at Major League Baseball, written by Bob Nightingale. Schwarber's $150 million deal heats up talks. Agent Scott Boras believes that DH Kyle Schwarber's 5-year, $150 million contract will not only accelerate free agent signings this winter, but will lead to longer-term contracts for sluggers over the age of 30. Yes, in particular, 31-year-old New York Mets first baseman Pete Alonso, who is represented by Boras. Alonso drove from his home in Tampa and met with several teams at the winter meetings in hopes of landing a contract for at least 7 years, according to the New York Post. The Mets have been reluctant to offer more than a 3-year deal, but Boras insists that with Schwarber's deal, paying him $30 million a year through the age of 37, should prove that teams are open to signing sluggers to long-term deals. On Wednesday, December 10th, the Baltimore Orioles landed Alonso with a 5-year, $155 million contract. The Phillies were one of 4 teams willing to give Schwarber at least a 4-year deal, according to a person with direct knowledge of his negotiations, with the Orioles, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Cincinnati Reds all making offers ranging from $120 to $150 million. The evidence in the market is that these premium talents that have power are in great demand, Boras said, and the teams are willing to give more length to secure plot power in the marketplace. Schwarber is obviously one of the best power hitters in the game, and all of these guys that are elite whether they're 29 or 30, they see a player who's got 5 years length at 33. It's obviously a fair quotient for the players that are younger to demand more years. I think it really shows the demand for power. We just don't have a lot of it, and it shows the impact that it has. Now that Schwarber is locked up, Boras sees teams reaching out to him about Alonso, outfielder Cody Bellinger, and third baseman Alex Bregman. The Mets say they loved outfielder Brandon Nimmo, too, a crowd favorite, and traded him to the Texas Rangers for second baseman Marcus Semien. They told everyone they still wanted to re-sign closer Edwin Diaz after signing Devin Williams to a 3-year, $51 million contract, but refused to offer more than a 3-year, $66 million deal for Diaz. They were outbid by the Los Angeles Dodgers' 3-year, $69 million contract. The Dodgers are the Goliath, Boras said. They got something they really, really needed. Right now, in our industry, when a Goliath snaps his fingers, he seems to be getting what he wants. The Mets are a Goliath, too, with the richest owner in baseball in Steve Cohen, but they're probably certainly showing that their popularity is not the top priority. If they can trade Nimmo and let Diaz walk, they can certainly let Alonso depart. While the slow free agent market is just starting to move, with the Toronto Blue Jays having a press conference Tuesday, December 9th, to introduce their new $210 million pitcher in Dylan Cease, Boras says he has not encountered one bit of hesitation from owners to spend because of the potential lockout in December 2026. The owners just are not concerned, Boras said. They should be more concerned about the ebbs and flows of talent because that's what operates success in this industry. The fact that they don't have to pay players during a lockout, it mitigates the primary concern. I don't know of a collective bargaining agreement where an owner came out and said, you know what, things are going to be so much worse that I'm concerned about the longevity of the contract I just agreed to prior to the new CBA. The only thing that even major market teams are concerned about are luxury taxes and how that's going to evolve. So, it's usually that they believe that the outcome of the CBA is going to be more beneficial to them than the prior one. So that's why you don't see clubs hesitate to where they're going to sacrifice a year or miss out on a talent that won't be available for 5 or 6 years. Our last article is written by Nancy Armour, columnist for USA Today. Rodman's exit would cost NWSL dearly. The PTSD from their failed predecessors and years of fragile existence is going to be the ruin of the NWSL and WNBA. Both leagues are on solid footing with fans, sponsors, and broadcasters. Multiple years of sustained growth and expansion interest are proof this is not a blip. Yet management in both leagues is so petrified of going back to a time when they had to scratch and claw for every penny and eyeball that they refuse to make the bold moves required of the leagues claiming to be best in the world. The latest example is NWSL Commissioner Jessica Berman's boneheaded veto of a multi-million-dollar contract extension for Trinity Rodman, reportedly because Berman believes the deal's structure violates the salary cap rules. No idea exactly how or why, since there is no maximum contract in the NWSL and Rodman's deal wouldn't break the salary cap. And even if it did, so what? Keeping Rodman is imperative if the NWSL wants to remain competitive with the European leagues. Rodman is a generational talent, a marvel on the field. Google Trin Spin. You'll thank me later. And dynamic social media presence with more than 1 million followers on Instagram and TikTok. She appeals to soccer diehards and casual fans alike, a bona fide superstar the likes of which the NWSL hasn't had since Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan were in their prime. In the irony of ironies, Rodman was named to Forbes' 30 Under 30 list last week, the only soccer player and one of 7 female athletes included. Rodman also wants to stay in the NWSL, and her skills and celebrity capital should make her the exception to whatever rules the league has. Yet Berman's trepidation is going to force Rodman to walk, as Naomi Girma, Emily Fox, and Alyssa Thompson did recently. "We want Trinity in the NWSL," Berman said before the NWSL championship game last weekend, which featured Rodman and the Washington Spirit for a second consecutive year. "And we will fight for her." Apparently not. It is understandable for Berman and WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert to be wary of moving too fast or doing things that could upset the competitive balance of the league or expose it financially. 2 professional women's soccer leagues failed before the NWSL. The NWSL and the WNBA both endured many lean years before the recent explosion in interest. Teams in both leagues have shuttered or relocated. But Engelbert, with her slow walk of expansion and charter flights, and now Berman, are also letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. According to the Athletic, Rodman's average salary under the proposed deal would be more than $1 million. She would make more in the final 2 years of the 4-year contract to take advantage of what is expected to be a new and bigger media rights deal. The NWSL's current rights deal expires after the 2027 season. The proposed deal is more than any other NWSL player has made, yes, but it is not NFL money. The deal is not going to bankrupt the league or the Spirit. With the league thriving, now is the time to shed the defensive posture and realize what might have been risky a few years ago is now the cost of a growing business. Besides, the cost to the league will be far greater if Rodman leaves. Berman is fond of saying the NWSL is the best league in the world and has the best players, but that is not true if it cannot hold onto its brightest young stars. If Rodman follows Girma, Fox, and Thompson to Europe, where there are no salary caps, the NWSL will effectively become a feeder league. Expect up-and-comers like Thompson's younger sister Giselle, or Claire Hutton, or Jamise Joseph to play a few years in the NWSL, and then, when the opportunity presents itself, head to England or France or Spain to cash in. The NWSL will be no different than MLS, and no one will ever mistake MLS for the best league in the world. Is that what Berman wants? After everything she's done so far, has elevated the league? Berman has done a tremendous job in her first 3 years as commissioner by repairing the damage done by an abuse scandal, bringing in new sponsors and owners who see the value in the league, and expanding the league's media platform. But she is setting the league back by not recognizing that Rodman is an exceptional player for whom exceptions must be made. To make progress, sometimes you have to rewrite the rules. Now is one of those times. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Thursday, December 11th, 2025. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Will Evans. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 9 of Boat Baby by Vicky Nguyen. Following that, at 3 o'clock is The New Yorker, and at 4 o'clock is a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low